Okay, so we are given a question which has been asked in GATE 2017. We have an instance, as you can see, we have an instance of a relation by the name of top scorer. Here we have three attributes: player, country, and goals. And we have been given the values, right? We have been given values for player, values for country, and values for goal. And here we have a query written, and they're asking us to find the number of tuples returned. So how do we go about solving this question? Now, in order to solve this question, or in order to solve such types of questions, what we need to do is we need to go step by step. This is a case of nested queries. As you can see that here we have a select operation, and here again we have another select, and here we have another select, and this select is a part of the where clause. See, this select operation that you can see here, this select operation is part of the where clause of this select. Similarly, this select operation is part of the where clause of this select. So since we have two queries in the where clause of an outer query, such queries are known as nested queries. Now, in order to solve nested queries, we have to find the output of the inner query and then see how it affects the final output, or how it leads to the final output. Now, before going ahead, let's try to understand what is the meaning of this clause as. We're seeing it in a number of places. We are seeing it here as well, and we are seeing it here as well. So as is used to rename tables or rename attributes. Generally what happens is, if you have a table name which is quite long, taking up a number of characters, longer than usual, then you would want to use shorthands for that table name or for that long attribute name. In order to be able to change from a long name to a short name, we have the as clause. So the as clause will help to rename a table temporarily, mind you. Because I've used this as clause and renamed top scorer to TA doesn't mean that the schema has changed to TA. No, this is simply a temporary operation and will not affect the actual name of the relation. Okay, now let's move on to the output. So see, here we have this inner query, and we have to find its output. Now, before finding its output, let's just start from the outer query. Here they're asking us to select ta.player from top scorer as TA. So I'm going to rename my top scorer table as TA. And from that table, that means from top scorer, I'll select all player names. See, select ta.player. Under the player attribute, we have player names. So I'll be selecting all player names from my table top scorer where the goals, the number of goals scored by the player is greater than all. All means the query, this query that we see here, will return a number of rows. So when we get number of rows, there the rows that will be returned will have only one attribute, that is the goals attribute, right? As you can see here in the select clause, we have the goals attribute. So since it will return the goals attribute, we have to select all such players where the goals scored by the player is greater than all such attributes or all such goal values returned by this query. See, I'll go step by step. All means to consider all the tuples returned by this query. That is the meaning of this all clause, and any clause refers to at least one tuple. If we have at least one tuple which is greater, that means where ta.goals is greater than at least one tuple, then we will take that tuple into our output. So let's just go step by step. Let's try to solve this part first. They're saying where ta.goals is greater than all tuples. What tuples? Tuples such as tb.goals, that means only the goals attribute, from top scorer, that means this table, where tb.country equal to Spain. Now, if you closely examine this table, you will find that there is no player from Spain. So the value that will be returned by this query will be null. That means we'll get nothing. We'll get no results. We'll get no tuples. We'll get no records from this query, right? And now we have to draw attention to this part, to this query. And since there is the AND clause, it means that the goals, the number of goals, have to be greater than this condition as well as this condition. Now, obviously, since nothing is returned by this query, it will be always greater than it. Now we have to check for this one. Now see, ta.goals is greater than any. Select tc.goals. So let's just see what we get from this query. Okay. So we'll have the temporary table name as tc, and it will have only one attribute, mind you, that is the goals attribute, where tc.country equal to Germany. So I'll have to select all those tuples where the country name is Germany. So I can see that I have one here, Miroslav Klose with 16, and then I have Muller with 14, and I have Klinsmann with 11, and now again I have Muller once more with 10, and I have Rahn with 10 as well, right? So these are the German top scorers, right? I only have the number of goals scored by them. So let me just verify. I'll get Germany 16, Germany 14, Germany 11, Germany 10, and Germany 10 again. So this is returned by this part. Now I'll have to select all those player names from top scorer, that means from this table, where ta.goals. So ta is the entire table, right? ta refers to this entire table, top scorer, where ta.goals is greater than this part. That means I'll have to select all the players who have scored more goals than at least one of these values. So I'll have to select all those players from my original table such that they have scored more goals than at least one of these values. At least one, why? Because here you have the any clause. That means it has to be greater than any one of the tuples, at least one of the tuples. So what do? I scan each tuple one by one. Now look at Klose. Klose is greater than 10 because 16 is greater than 10. So we will select Klose. So I'll get in my output, I'll get Miroslav Klose. And now see, what about Ronaldo? Ronaldo has scored more goals than a number of German players, right? So it will be present in my output. What about Muller? Now I will take the German players into account as well, mind you, because there is no condition which states that we have to exclude German players. So the German players will also be taken into account. So any German player who has scored more goals than any other German player will be taken into account. That means here we have Muller. Muller has scored more goals than, like Gerd Muller has scored more goals than Thomas Muller as well as Rahn. So it will come into our output. Okay. Now what about just Fontaine? Yes, 13 is greater than 10, 11, and this 10 as well. So Fontaine will also be present in our output. What about Pele? Yes, Pele will also make it to the list. See, I'll just scan each tuple and check whether it's greater than at least one of these values. Because of this any clause, I'm repeating this over and over again so that you can understand. It has to be greater than at least one tuple. That's why once I find a match, I won't check for the other tuples. So for Pele, see, Pele has 12 goals to his name. So I'm checking with each tuple. Now 12, is it greater than 16? No. So let me check for 14. Is it greater? No. I'll check for 11. Yes, it is greater. So I've found one matching tuple where Pele's tally is greater than one of these tuples. It's greater than 11, so it comes into my output. Now what about Klinsmann? Klinsmann, look at Klinsmann. He has 11 goals to his name. So 11 is not greater than 16. Let me check another tuple. It is not greater than 14. What about another one? It is not greater than 11. It is equal to 11 but not greater. What about 10? Yes. So Klinsmann makes it to my list as well. Right? And what about Kossis? Kossis will also make it to the list because he has the same number of goals as Klinsmann, and for this tuple it will be greater, right? Now what about players starting from Batistuta? Now see, Batistuta has 10 goals to his name. Now 10 is not greater than 16, not greater than 14, not greater than 11, not greater than 10, not greater than 10. So I am not getting any tuple from this TC relation or from this TC instance which is lesser than the number of goals scored by Batistuta. So I cannot take this into account. Similarly, Kubulus, Lato, Lineker, Muller, Thomas Muller this is, and Rahn will not make it to my output. So finally, how many players have made it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the number of tuples, right? The number of tuples returned is 7. So this is my answer. Thank you.